So we are Heidi and Kenny Drury, and we have been blended now going on our 19th year. And Kenny brought 3 daughters into the marriage, and I brought 2 sons. And unfortunately, we did not have blended and redeemed or blended kingdom family when we were blending. And if we had, it would have just saved so much heartache.
I knew nothing about marriage other than just give it a shot. And from the way I was raised, it was I just mimicked my dad. My dad was a jerk, so
Yeah.
And I just took that into marriage, and it was horrible.
We felt like outcasts in our church. We never felt like anything was being spoken to us from the pulpit. We definitely felt some people's eyes at the back of our head, like we were in sin being a divorced couple. It felt very isolated and alone. When we started going together and started blending, we actually went to a church that neither of us belonged to, so nobody knew our past. I know that sounds really strange, but we left our church families to go to somewhere where we could almost hide. And we served and joined in, but it was, nobody knew our story, nobody knew who we were, so we'd just say we were married with kids, and that was good enough.
It was an XO conference. We met Scott and Vanessa, just really liked what they were doing, and definitely realized quick that that was something we needed, because we didn't have a clue.
In October or November of 21, after we had just gone through certification at XO Marriage as marriage mediators there, and so we got invited to our first conference. We'd never been to an XO Marriage conference because we had just moved from Northern California, and so we came out here semi-retired, wanting to pour into marriages like we had been in California. And so Scott and Vanessa had a booth at the conference there at First Baptist Dallas, and
That's right, yeah.
Ran into them behind the booth and just got to talking to them. And I said, wow, where were you guys? Where were you when we needed you? But I mean, it was great to see that there was a voice for the blended family. It was great that there was a presence. I love the fact that Vanessa's all about color. So to me, it really brings people in. It invites them in. It's almost like, look at us over here, we're Blended Kingdom family. And so her personality matches. They're both obviously full of spice, but also knowledge.
Well, that and they were approachable. We struck out conversation. We're friends right off the bat, and it's been like that ever since we've been here. So being in marriage ministry, it was like, this is what we need. This is what's missing within the in the community, is being able to have resources to give, because most of our couples that come in are blended families. And to be able to give them something back that we never had, that's what really drew me in, was the fact that, wow, there is something out there that we can actually glean off of and share with couples that are blending, because that seems to be the biggest problem.
Right before their book came out, obviously we met them at the conference and knew that there was a website, and we could say, hey, go to this website for our couples, or go read articles, or just following them on social media. I mean, that was the first thing I did, was connect with Vanessa and Scott on social media, because our clients that would come to us, or just on my own page, being a blended family, we have a lot of people that we're friends with that are blended. I'm like, hey, everybody, go check them out. You've got to see what's there. I have the book out in front of me a lot of times with clients and notes, so that if I hear something pop out, I can turn to that page and say, oh, chapter 3, go to this, priority and all that stuff in the book. So just pointing couples back to the book as a resource, and what chapter specifically is for them. But yeah, I think the podcast, I kind of have a list in my head and off to the side of which podcast would be great fit for other clients. The articles are great on the website. Scott and Vanessa both do a great job writing. And so just to have God's perspective about those issues that pop up, being able to send people to the website or just link them to those resources, that's what we've used a lot. Most blended families are divorced because there's been some sort of dysfunction that they brought into their original marriage with them. So Kenny and I really hone in on that kind of dysfunction that they brought to the marriage with them. So a lot of the articles from Scott and Vanessa, their book, plays right into how we teach couples to get that healing. Because what I like to say is, we have all these tools for how to do marriage God's way, but why can't I? Having somebody else have the other great resources, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's there and so easily available. I mean, media is where it's at. So being on the podcast, the website, all of that stuff, social media. I mean, the daily memes, I even love seeing them. The prayers that they have. It's a great reminder, even as a married person who's a coach. I get help every day when I look at the social medias, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing that today with my husband. So, even though we're seasoned.
So that's where you get it.
So even though we know what to do, it's still a great reminder for us I think for me, especially with blended kingdom families, what I like is I'm coaching people who are just like us, who've been just like us. I'm looking in a mirror, so to speak, of where I was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I love that I can connect with a couple on a level that they might resonate with. We've dealt with, I hate to say it, but we joke that between the two of us, we've dealt with every sin, every dysfunction. So everybody that comes to us has something that we can relate to. And I know God does that. You know, we like to say God plays chess and he puts the people right in front of us that he needs for us to help. And so it's a blessing to know that we're helping somebody through something we've been through. Our ultimate goal would be to get people early on in their relationship or even before they get married so that we can stop what happened to us.
Seeing couples starting to get along, you know, after a couple sessions, you know, they, after homework and starting to see that they have to submit to God. You know, once they submit to God, everything changes, and that's my favorite thing, is just to watch the change happen once they submit. And then start submitting to each other, and then start serving each other, and then, you know, they go from sitting on, from not even wanting to be around each other to starting to hold hands, to starting to lean in. So the whole body language and everything changes.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my absolute favorite. Is just but it all boils down to submission. You know, if they don't submit, they're not going to get it.
Just saving families from generational curse of divorce or future divorce. You know, once you've been divorced once, it's easier to get divorced again and again. To me, knowing that there's children that are going to have a different life than they would have if these parents didn't reach out for coaching, I think that's what I'm so passionate about. When we introduce ourselves and tell a little story about us, we like to include, listen, this is what we've walked through in our own lives and in our own marriage, so that people can let their guard down and think, okay, I'm not the only one. Because a lot of times when you're in the middle of dysfunction in your marriage, it feels like, am I the only one that's dealing with this? I don't want to talk about the issues that we're dealing with. And for somebody to know that there's somebody that looks like them and sounds like them and walks like them, it really helps lower walls. And so then that's when the healing can really take place, because it's authentic for both of us. Yeah.
I was coaching a guy yesterday that if it wasn't for me being vulnerable and sharing my story and parts of my story, he says it made it easy for him because he's never confessed some stuff that he confessed to me yesterday. He's never told anybody. And he says, man, if you hadn't have come to me and, you know, opened up the way you did, I wouldn't have even opened up. He goes, but you made it so easy for me to talk to. And then the things he shared with me was like, wow, I get it, yeah.
Generational curses, we don't even think about how deeply rooted those are. But I had divorce on my father's side of the family so far back, and alcoholism, and then on my mom's side, gossip and lying. And there's just so many on each side of our families from both of ours. And unfortunately, his children were older when we got together and got healed, so to speak. So we've had to teach them as adults how to do that, which is great because we now have the tools. And it's never too late to break a generational curse. We've changed their lives and our grandchildren's lives just because we've been healed. So our great-grandchildren will not have marriages like we did before we got married and healed. And so, I mean, it's like the stories of the Bible. You know what I mean? You see the time that goes through the Bible and all those generations. That we have a God of generations. And so he's never left us or forsaken us. And so to be able to have somebody really understand that what happened in your past and your family's past doesn't have to bleed into your marriage or your children's marriage. I guess, again, I'll just say it's never too late.
Yeah.
I guess that's the biggest thing. It's never too late to change the trajectory of your marriage and your children and your grandchildren. And even if you don't have children, you break those curses, and then you're a different person for the community that you live in.
Absolutely.
So it's not just if you have families. It's what about the community you live on? You're now a different person for them.
Just by the way I was raised, you know, again, drunk dad and drug addict mom, there was, you know, divorce, there was abuse, there was anger. Anger was huge in our family.
Yeah.
My dad was always yelling, screaming, hollering, and I mean, to where well, of course I followed suit. And about 5 years ago, that broke in me. And it basically happened overnight. I went from being super angry, having angry outbursts almost every day, to I've had one in 5 years. And it's just, I don't get angry anymore.
You know
and when that happened, I can't pinpoint the day it happened, but it was quite a few, like, months down the road. In fact, I was working on her car one day. This is testimony on that. I was working on her car, and I text her, I wished I didn't start this project. We had to do fuel injectors, and I hated it. But I shot her a text, I wish I didn't start this project. And she started blowing up my phone. Are you okay? Is there anything broken? You know,
no, I was like, oh my God, I'm like,
and because, you know, I wouldn't hesitate to throw a wrench through the wall and stuff like that. And I just laughed. That was the day that I realized that I was no longer angry.
It's interesting when Kenny will share about his anger and the issues that played in our marriage. People look at him and go, what?
You're so
like
mellow.
You're very mellow. You're like the calmest guy I know. And I was like, dude, you have no idea. But that is what a generational curse, breaking it, can do. And being able to name it and break it, that's the important thing, right?
Well, it actually had a name. It was called the Sleeping Giant. I used to always say, don't wake the sleeping giant.
Well, it's like the Red Sea. You know, Moses brought them right to the Red Sea, and they're like, well, now what? Look, they're right here getting us. And
we need to go back.
We need to go back. And then he parted the Red Sea, and as they were going through, they're like, they're right there. And it was like every step they weren't trusting God and the power that he gave Moses. And so it's like, what is your Red Sea moment in your marriage? Are you, right at the river, right at the sea? Are you in the middle of the sea as it's parted? Are you on the other side and going, wait a minute, I want to go back there? And we tend to want to go back to the dysfunction and what we had before because that's familiar. We know how to do it, even though it's dysfunctional. Yeah. And a lot of times we have to have somebody like a coach to bring us through the rest of that. Like Moses, think about Moses led them. And as coaches, that's what we believe our job is, to kind of lead you through the wilderness, to lead you through the steps to get to the promised land in your marriage. And so if you didn't have coaches, like here at Blended Kingdom Families, you wouldn't have your promised land moment.
It's for the children, the children's children that are coming up, the next generation before that, because being a child of an alcoholic, drug addict parents, had my parents would have got it, would have been kind of cool, but I think you don't know what's going to happen to that kid's kids, because a blended family is boiled down to this man and this woman getting married with this set of kids and this set of kids, and teaching them kids how to do life. And without this resource, without Blended Kingdom Families, teaching people equipping couples to deal with these children, getting them to see eye to eye, getting these to see eye to eye with each, they almost don't have a chance. And with the resources here, it can change the trajectory of the children's children. And that's what I say is I would encourage to sow into BKF to help the children's children.
God says go out into the world. Well, how do we do that as individual people in this little neck of the woods in Colleyville, Texas? Well, we do that by getting on the airways, social media and books. And so a reach can be all over the world now instead of just your local little area. So I'm excited to see.
Go ye therefore to all nations, preaching the gospel.
I love watching the impact that things like this have when you say, oh, in the Netherlands, somebody bought your book, or they're listening to a podcast, or somebody flies into a conference from Australia or somewhere you would not even think of, oh, somebody from Thailand came in or whatever. To me, that's amazing.